Hello and welcome to all of our listeners. I'm Aiden Pastel, your host for tonight's edition of Late Night Truthiness. Tonight we have a guest speaker with us to talk about metacognition. Please give Mrs. Kelly Croft a warm welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
Well, Kelly, I'm sure you'd like to know what's on the agenda for tonight's discussion.
Oh, do tell.
Well, considering you are pretty well versed in this topic, I'm looking forward to this. The topic of the night is metacognition.
Perfect. I actually just finished a personal research project delving into the book Mindwise by Nicholas Epley. That book is chock full of useful ideas and information.
Really? Then, by all means, please give us a little background.
Okay, essentially, Epley is an experimental social psychologist, and this is a book about his research into how we understand the intentions, motives, thoughts, beliefs, feelings, and wants of ourselves and others, our mistakes in doing so, and what we can do to correct for these predictable errors.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I agree. I find the argument he makes about people thinking they know more about the way they think and the way others think than they actually do is interesting. To quote, "We think we understand the minds of others and even our own mind better than we actually do."
I find all of this intriguing, Kelly. But I'd like to throw another hat in the ring. Louis Althusser.
Please do.
Well, Louis Althusser was a French Marxist philosopher. In contrast with what you mentioned about Epley earlier, Althusser argues that all social interactions and rational thought are, at their core, economically driven. Under this assumption, it seems that humans are much more predictable than Epley would suggest.
I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah, well, Althusser describes this as a foundational infrastructure, for example, the forces, the means, and the relations of production, that determines the superstructure, which is the culture and the ideology.
Although I do find this an interesting twist in the argument, I think Epley's argument makes more sense. If people could think more objectively without feeling or succumbing to their own biases and predetermined ideas, then we would benefit society as a whole much more.
I agree with you there, Kelly, but there is too much evidence that supports Althusser's argument for me to completely buy into Epley's ideas. The fact that society is founded and driven by economic forces tells me that humans will continue to be predictable, unable to think completely rationally. It's simply human nature.
Well, now, I'd like to hear about this evidence.
I mean, the election this year is proof enough. You have hundreds of thousands of blue-collar, Rust Belt workers from key states such as Ohio and Pennsylvania that voted for Donald Trump, essentially deciding the next president.
But what does this have to do with Althusser and economics?
Well, Trump says it himself.
So we will bring our jobs back, Sean. We're going to bring our jobs, as sure as you're sitting there, we are going to bring our jobs back into this country for the first time.
The fact that he promises these workers job security and potential employment may have swayed many of them to vote Republican this year. His message really seemed to hit home with a lot of these people who, in the past, may have more traditionally voted Democratic. To me, that seems like a very economically driven decision that resulted in a massive upset this election cycle.
Okay, now I see what you're saying. I definitely agree that there's some validity to Althusser's argument. However, I still believe that Epley is more right here.
Yeah, I find both arguments valid as well. But I'm going to have to disagree with you about which one is more right.
I guess we agree to disagree.
I guess so. Anyways, that's all the time we have tonight, folks. Thank you all for listening in, and thank you so much again for coming out, Kelly.
Oh, please, it really is my pleasure.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen, and remember, the power of truthiness can't be ignored.